Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you. Today, we celebrate our Lord's birth. And one of the great traditions of celebrating the Lord's birth is giving gifts. Now, in my family, we grew up, there was kind of three boys, and then there was a bit of a gap in three girls. And so, well, it was us three boys. We were all very well behaved, of course. And we'd go to the Vigil Mass, Christmas Vigil Mass at St. Paul's Parish in Evansville. And we'd mostly behave, mostly because we knew that if we didn't behave, we would probably get gifts taken away. And so we behaved at Mass. And then we went home and had dinner, and we opened up all the gifts from our parents and from each other and whatnot. And then the next morning, we'd wake up after struggling to go to sleep, and we'd open our Santa presents. And so that was kind of our tradition, but every family has its own traditions with giving gifts. We see in our culture that Christmas has more and more become about the exchange of gifts and less about celebrating Christ's coming. You see that especially with the way that we are preparing for Christmas, and that we kind of culturally observe the season. It starts about a week or two before Black Friday, before Thanksgiving. You start getting spam emails in your inbox with all the sales that are going to happen. You start seeing the ads on TV, or I suppose on the internet these days, about all the things that are going to be on sale. After Thanksgiving, you go out and get, people generally go out and get all these gifts, or they wait for Cyber Monday for all the deals to come out. And they order all their gifts. They spend time ordering these gifts for people. And then sometime before or maybe right after Christmas, they give the gifts, and that's it. Then Christmas is over. And you even, on the radio, right, they play Christmas music all the way through, really even sometimes before Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving Day, it usually starts. It goes all the way through today, and then you turn on the radio tomorrow, and it's done. I mean, you maybe don't know this, but the 12 days of Christmas start today. They don't start 12 days ago. They start today. So our culture has more and more, the custom of giving gifts is just that. It's kind of this custom that's become detached from the real reason why we give gifts. And part of this we see in how there's a struggle to give and receive well. Right? We struggle to give gifts and to receive gifts for the right reasons in a good way. But the tradition, our tradition, what we believe, what God has revealed to us in His coming among us in the flesh, in the person of Jesus Christ, is that there is a solution, and God has revealed to us what it means to give and receive a gift. And ultimately, that leads us to love. So let's break that down a little bit. We see, just as our culture has become more materialistic, we see this struggle to give and receive gifts in the way that they're often given, right? They're supposed to be given out of love, right? You care about someone, you want to show them a sort of sign of your love and concern and care for them, you're thinking of them, you want what's good for them, and so you give them a gift. But oftentimes, more and more, we're giving gifts out of sort of obligation, right? I can only think of when my family, both sides of the family would get together, and I'm thinking of one Christmas in particular, where my aunts and uncles, I mean, there's a lot there's like 20 some cousins of us. And so to get all of us a gift was what can I get that isn't going to break the bank, but also is going to kind of appeal to both the boys and the girls, and so on and so forth. Right, one year, my aunt decided it would be a good idea to get everybody silly string. We were at a hotel celebrating Christmas. My grandpa disapproved of that idea after it had come to fruition. So just if you're thinking of getting silly string for nieces and nephews for Christmas, just would not recommend that one. But we tend to give gifts sort of out of obligation or out of a sense that it's the right thing to do, but not necessarily because we really love that person. Sometimes we maybe put a little bit more thought into a gift, right? Maybe for our own family, for spouse, for our siblings, right? We want them to receive that gift well, but we should do it out of love, out of real love for that person. I want to show that person, expressed in this gift, that I love them, I care for them, I want what's good for them, I'm thinking of them. Right? We also struggle in receiving gifts, and this is even more pronounced in our culture because we're a very self-sufficient culture. And so we might, receive a gift and say, "Oh, thank you. That's very, very kind of you," and move on from it. Sometimes even kids, oftentimes actually need a reminder. Oh, go say thank you to your godmother, or godfather. Go give thanks to grandma or grandpa for that gift. And that's part of that's natural, but also we tend to sort of have a perfunctory obligation. We just have to sort of do okay, I open the gift. Oh, thank you. This is very nice. It isn't, in the back of our mind, we might be thinking, oh, this is kind of the wrong color. It doesn't go with, right? These are the wrong color socks. They don't go with my other socks or whatever, right? Whatever the gift might be, we sort of can have a sort of valuation of it or a sense that, well, maybe it's a nice gesture, but I don't really need this. And oftentimes, there's two things that kind of reveal this. One, we give gift receipts. Sometimes it's just, you get the wrong size for a piece of clothing or something. But a gift receipt also is just like, well, I don't want this thing. I want something else. I'm going to go send it back to Amazon and get something else. Or the other way that we see it is that we after Christmas, there's all these sales that happen because the retailers need to clear out their inventory, and we just go hog wild on buying more stuff after Christmas, right? Okay, I didn't get the thing that I really wanted, so I'm just going to go get it for myself. And it's this sort of mentality is particular to our own country where we have a very materialistic and self-sufficient society. Right? I can get what I want, I can provide for myself, or I can even avoid difficulties for myself. I don't need anyone else. And so getting gifts is very difficult for us because we generally don't have a sense of I need something because I can generally provide it for myself. And even if there's something that I would like or that I do need, I don't necessarily need you to get it for me. I can get it myself. And this strikes at the core of what it really means to give gifts at Christmas. And we have to look to God to see what it really means to give and receive a gift. God is the perfect gift giver, right? And we see there's two primary gifts that he gives us. The first is that he gives us life. He creates us. Okay? He creates man in his own image and likeness. He makes us in his image and likeness. He wills each of us individually. So he gives us our very existence. Right? And the difficulty that we can have with that gift is how do you say thanks for a gift that is so far beyond your ability to respond to? And how do we give thanks to God for creating us? Your very existence is a gift from God. How do we give thanks? The Lord himself tells us what we're made for and therefore why he's given us life. Because out of his free will, he desires communion with us. He creates us in his image and likeness out of the goodness of who he is, the God who brings life. And we respond by giving our lives back to him, responding to the Lord. Right? In gratitude to him, we give back to him as much as we possibly can of who we are, our very selves. We see this also that the Lord has come to save us, right? God makes Adam and Eve. They turn away from him in sin, and so they separate themselves from God. But God promises that he will send his Son to save us. He will send a Messiah. He will send his very Son. And that's what we celebrate at Christmas. That's why we give gifts at Christmas, because we celebrate the greatest gift that we will ever receive, which is God reaching out to us to save us from eternal damnation, to save us from separation from him, to save us from the brokenness that we experience daily. That's the gift that God has given us. It's why we symbolize that by giving gifts to one another at Christmas. God has loved us. He gives us this gift of his Son. We show that we love others by giving gifts to them. Right? So we imitate God when we give gifts. But we have to do that in a way that honors God, and we can learn in the way that he calls us back to himself, how to honor him. Right? He shows us the way to respond to the gift that he has given us. He loves us. Right? He loves us, and so we are called to respond in love to God. Why? What's the most important way we do that? We give thanks to God. We come to Mass. Not because it's some obligation. This is what God expects, so if I do what God expects, then that's the right way to give thanks. There's an element of that, but that's not really the deeper meaning. What God really invites us to is to share in his divine life. And so when we come to Mass, we respond to God the way that he has made us to respond to him. What does he tell us in the Psalms? He says, the psalmist, this is generally David, King David is considered the psalmist, the one who writes the Psalms. The psalmist says, "How shall I make a return to the Lord? The cup of salvation I will raise. I will call on the Lord's name." Right? What do we do at Mass? The cup of salvation we raise. We call on the Lord's name. God gives us his very life, Jesus Christ, the body, blood, soul, and divinity, his body, blood, soul, and divinity. We give that back to the Father. Right? We offer the offering that God has made for us. That's how we respond. Our lives are drawn up into that sacrifice. So when we come to Mass, especially on Christmas, we give thanks to God by offering our lives back to him in the Eucharist. Right? It helps us to honor his ways, to live the way that he wants to bless us. Not just that he expects if we follow his commandments, he can do good things for us, sort of transactional Christianity, which is not actually what we believe, but that when we draw close to the Lord and offer our lives back to him, we can receive the fullness of the blessings he wishes to give, which ultimately lead us to eternal life. That's what the Lord wants. That's the love that the Lord has for us. We see that in every gift, really, if we break it apart just a little bit. If we see what the object of the gift is and what is symbolized by the gift. The gift in itself, we might say, and what is represented by that gift. I'm going to give you just a couple brief examples. So people oftentimes exchange plates of cookies during Christmas. Now, I'm just going to preface this. Don't show up with any more cookies. I have plenty at the rectory. I appreciate all of them, but for the sake of not having to buy a new wardrobe, I would appreciate not getting any more cookies. But, so that in and of itself can be a gift. If you haven't given me cookies, don't bring me cookies. Thank you very much. I appreciate you not bringing more cookies. But that small gesture of taking the time to make the cookies, to put them on a plate, to bring them to the person that you care for, that's the gift itself is very sweet, pun intended, kind. It's just a small expression of the care and concern that you have for that person, that you're thinking of them. But what is symbolized deeper is that love you have for them, right? So, okay, it's a nice little, yes, I'm edified by the little sugary sweets that I get. Great, they taste great with a cup of coffee in the morning and whatnot. But they symbolize something deeper, the love and care that that person has for you. One of the greatest gifts that I've ever received was the chalice, actually the chalice that I'm celebrating Mass with today. And a chalice is not, for a priest, is essential to being able to live out the vocation that he has. And it's a very precious gift, right? It's made of usually silver or gold. Sometimes there's another metal that's used as its base, but it's always plated in silver or gold. Sometimes there's jewels on it. Mine's silver, solid silver with gold plating on the inside of the cup, which is actually just a little bonus knowledge. That's actually the design that is traditionally believed to be what Christ used himself at the Last Supper, a silver cup with a gold interior. And but that gift was given to me by my grandparents. My grandparents both pitched in to get me that gift. And so it's a important and very valued object in and of itself. To be able to offer Mass, I need a chalice. But at a deeper level, that symbol of my grandparents' love for me personally and for the priesthood, that they would give me that gift, is a great reminder. And in fact, the chalice on the bottom is engraved with the family names, and that Masses, in a certain sense, always kind of have a little bit of a memorial, reminded when I use the chalice of my loved ones. Especially 3 of my 4 grandparents have died, so it's good to pray for them. And that symbol of their love is even more important than the gift itself in some ways. But both are very important. And that's what the Lord shows to us. What does the Lord give us? His very self. He gives us himself. Right? What is symbolized in that gift? The love that the Lord has for us and the promise that he will bring us to eternal life if we are faithful to him. So this Christmas, as we receive and give gifts, let's give gifts with the love that should be behind them, with the desire to really reach out to the person we're giving the gift to have an encounter with them, to reveal the love we have for them, the care and concern. Even if there's difficulties or we don't know that person particularly well, some kind of some acquaintance that we're maybe exchanging gifts with for whatever reason, that we give the gifts with an intentionality and a desire to show our love and care and concern for that person, but also to receive them, just as the Lord has shown us, right? To love, he gives us out of love the gift of his very self. We receive it in love. We respond to him with our very lives. That's how we should give and receive, in a certain sense, every gift. We should give our gifts out of love. We should receive them with a real thanks and praise for that gift, especially when the gift comes from the Lord. This Christmas, let's renew and deepen the way we receive the life that God has called us to and invited us to and shared with us. Let's ask him to help us to deepen that relationship we have with him. That's what he gives us this Christmas, the greatest gift we could possibly receive. Merry Christmas, everyone.